Monsters and villains are not always what they appear in Nimona, the most recent animated masterpiece on Netflix and one of the year's most rebellious films. The story is set in a fascinating fantasy world where medieval aesthetics collide with futuristic landscapes, where armor is as popular as flying cars, and where swords are used like laser guns. It is based on the award-winning graphic novel by N.D. Stevenson and directed by Nick Bruno and Troy Quine, with Annapurna Pictures producing. Even if the film is among the greatest of 2023, some viewers may still be curious about Nimona's identity and the circumstances behind her transformation into the enormous beast at the end of the film. Now that Nimona is out, let's break down the movie's ending and talk about what it all means. Major spoilers ahead if you have not watched the movie yet. A warrior by the name of Glorith defended the kingdom from a fire-breathing beast a millennium before the events of Nimona. In order for the valiant members of all the noble families to stand together in the event that evil ever returns to afflict their land, Glorith vanquished the beast and founded the Order of Knights. Those are at least the story's claims. In actuality, Alad gave birth to the anxiety and terror that prompted the construction of the vast walls around the kingdom and the oppressive regime. Nimona's exact origins are never revealed in the film, but we do know that she spent a very long time wandering the countryside looking for friends. Nimona tried to behave differently but was consistently turned away because she was too unique. Nimona meets Glorith, a young child with golden hair, one day. Nimona's powers impress Glorith, and the two girls play together while the shapeshifter transforms into various animals for her friends' amusement. Unluckily, a bystander sees Glorith playing with a bear one day. When the man becomes alarmed, he calls on the entire town to save the daughter. To prove to everyone that she is not dangerous, Nimona transforms back into a girl. The people, however, refer to Nimona as a demon and assault the helpless child. To get away, Nimona tries to transform into other animals, but the villagers encircle her. A torch hurled at Nimona in the midst of the conflict sparks a fire that spreads throughout the community. Glorith then raises her blade to warn her old companion to return to the darkness, where she came from after being convinced that her parents are correct and Nimona is a monster. Nimona departs in tears. The shapeshifters saw the kingdom become more hostile to diversity as generations passed, and the story of Glorith expand as decades became centuries. Nimona is enraged by this and decides to play the part of the evil that has been assigned to her as a result of prejudice. We follow Ballister Boldheart, voiced by Riz Ahmed, as he participates in the ceremony that would finally transform him into a knight before the titular shapeshifter becomes the major character in the film. Only fighters descended from noble families were eligible to become knights for 1,000 years. Fortunately, Ballister had the chance to show himself owing to Queen Valorant's, Lorraine Toussaint's, blessings. Ballister had been training since he was a young boy to become the best knight the realm had ever seen. Sadly, Ballister's dream turns into a nightmare during the ceremony, when his sword fires a laser that kills the queen, making him the state's #1 enemy. Nimona teams up with Ballister to wreak havoc in the kingdom as a result of the institution, making the would-be knight a well-known villain. They discover together that the director, played by Francis Conroy, altered Ballister's sword to set up a trap that would kill both the knight and the queen simultaneously. The director was exposed to the Glorith story as a child, and as a result of her fear of the evil outside the kingdom's boundaries, she has become a zealot who values tradition above all else. The director therefore feared that the queen's invitation of a commoner to join the knightly order would be the first step in exposing the realm to the onslaught of the monsters. By executing the queen and demonstrating that people cannot put their faith in a commoner to serve as an agent of the law, the director did what she could to preserve the kingdom's traditional structure in keeping with Glorith's teachings. She is already a villainous person because of this. However, the director becomes so filled with anger during the final battle in Nimona that she nearly ends thousands of innocent lives. Ballister confronts his sidekick after learning that Nimona is the monster that Glorith fought against many years ago. After everything they had experienced, Ballister doesn't trust Nimona, which is why his sidekick becomes furious. As their conversation intensifies, Ballister grabs his sword out of concern that Nimona may attack him. That is the last drop that causes Nimona to permanently leave and give up on Ballister. Nimona is forced to consider how Glorith misled her in the past when she loses Ballister's companionship. Nimona, who is feeling lonely, depressed, and furious, gives in to her negative emotions and transforms into a huge dark beast. Nimona enters the kingdom as a beast, destroying the structures in her route as she makes her way to the enormous Glorith statue placed in front of the institution. Nimona decides to take her own life by tripping over the statue's sword since she doesn't think she'll ever have a loyal friend. Ballister positions himself in front of Nimona's blade to prevent her from committing this last act of desperation. Ballister is willing to risk his life to save his friend, even though he has no idea whether his effort will stop Nimona. Ballister apologizes, Nimona changes back into a girl, and the two lock lips in a cozy hug. Therefore, Nimona's final acceptance by Ballister enables her to lose her monster form and revert to her human form. The director dispatches the institution troops to stop the alleged monster while Nimona decimates the cities on her path. The director deploys the cannons above the walls of the kingdom against the populace when the knights are unable to hold onto Nimona. The director decides to fire in the city's central square in an effort to eliminate the monster. She is aware that a single cannon burst will result in the deaths of thousands of people, but the director is willing to pay that price to get rid of Nimona. Nimona vows to recreate history by defending the kingdom from the director after being inspired by how Ballister overcame his prejudice and altered his perspective. The shapeshifter transforms into a fiery bird and flies towards the cannon while deflecting the explosion with her body. The director and, it appears, Nimona are both destroyed in the explosion. The kingdom understands there is a greater world outside the walls they don't need to fear after seeing how the monster of Glorith gave her life in order to save the people from the institution. As a result of people's willingness to explore the wilderness, everything in the kingdom changes. Nimona and Ballister also become into heroes. Prior to the closing credits, we see Ballister making his way back to his former hideout while thinking back on his enjoyable time with Nimona. Nimona's voice welcoming Ballister is audible from beyond the screen, providing proof that she survived the explosion. That hopefully indicates that Nimona and Ballister will participate in further adventures together.